Hello, everyone. My name is William Bell, Executive Vice President of Products at phoenixNAP, and with me today I have Michael Deemer, Inside Systems Engineer at Veeam. Welcome, Michael.
Thanks for having me, William.
Friends, today we're going to talk about all the things that you should be considering for 2021 and how they can affect your posture, cybersecurity posture. A lot of it's going to be around data protection, but I'm going to make sure I hit on kind of varying parts of the security landscape. Please, if you have questions, throw them in the questions. We've got people monitoring them. They'll either answer them themselves or we'll keep them and answer them at the end live. So please overshare, ask questions, and we're happy to make those responses. So I feel like everybody knows this, right? Cybercrime, specifically ransomware, is just, it literally has just become proliferate, right? Like it is everywhere. Every single day I hear, this co-location customer, this, regional healthcare network, this city, somebody is becoming subject to ransomware and more broadly cybercrime, right? That all the things that you can think about, sensitive data leakage, systems penetration for hacking purposes. These are the things that we all know we're facing. I understand that everybody on this call isn't going to have the resources to defend all those things. I strongly urge everyone, if you're in a decision-making role, to invest in cybersecurity. I think over time we're going to see more and more pressure put on organizations to do so. But specifically right now, since the pandemic has started, it is just rampant. Like it's everywhere, right? We are seeing so many people, and the reason for this is that it's become easier. As organizations have decentralized, networks have become decentralized, BYOD is happening in companies that have no BYOD policies or procedures, right? We're starting to see more and more of this increased kind of malware penetration environments. A study by Deep Instinct said that essentially 4x what we saw pre-pandemic, which was already high. And numbers like 11 seconds, a cyber attack, and that 11-second number, that's what we know, right? So it's probably much more rapid than that, right? Probably every 7 seconds or something like that, we're seeing some organization somewhere hit by a cyber attack, and it's still costing huge amounts of money, right? I was reading an article the other day about the Colonial pipeline shutdown, the ransomware attack that they suffered. And, one of the analysts that was looking at this situation, the ransom that Colonial ultimately paid was $5 million. The analysts that were looking at it essentially said that they felt like that the attackers ultimately kind of realized that they'd stepped in something crazy that was going to elicit an entire government response and ask for less money specifically to try to just get the money and get out, right? And stop having contact with the organization. They said that they would have expected $20 to $25 million of ransom, and even though they paid the ransom in this case and received, right, the unlock tool, what I heard and what I think has been validated is that the unlock tool is actually so slow that restoration from backup, which we're going to talk a lot about today, was in most cases faster, or at least more, less serial, easier to do more at one time. And the total cost of Colonial is going to be like, untold hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And so that's why these averages get so high. Yes, you're a small company, maybe you get hit, but for every company out there that's going to suffer at $100 million or $200 million, there's a company that's suffering at $500,000, right? And so I think ultimately all of the things we're going to talk about today kind of ring true. And so what are we doing as a group in response to that? We're trying to spend more on cybersecurity. The problem that we see still as a market is that we can't really spend enough, right? And that's kind of the basics. That's the high-level summary. Executive summary of this is that we're unwilling as a group, as all of the people that are on defense, to spend enough to help, save ourselves essentially as a group. Not to say that some people don't spend a lot of money on security. I know plenty of organizations that take it very seriously. But for every one of those, there's 10 people that don't. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how we think you should be doing things that you should be doing in your organization, but also things that you might be doing right now that if you just take a couple extra steps could really change your world from a cybersecurity perspective. So we are seeing this kind of massive cloud adoption still, and ultimately there's a couple things that I would say to where this spend is going. We see cloud adoption growing, but what we're also seeing is the people that have chosen to go or strategically said that they're gonna go to the public cloud have to some extent said that have already done it or attempted it or are in some type of hybrid modality. They're making their ways, and so the acceleration of public cloud is going to be there just by nature, but it's not happening as fast, I think, as like the people in the reporting centers of the world, the analysts and actual reporters that are talking about technology as fast as they kind of indicate that it is. And one of the reasons that we see this is they see customers of ours see public cloud as more complex and harder to secure or less secure in some capacity. And that is true in some cases and not true in some cases, right? It ultimately comes down to expertise and how much expertise you have on hand to make yourself secure anywhere, whether that's in a cloud service, on-prem. You have to have people that understand what they're doing, or you're going to fall victim to pretty much the number one issue, misconfiguration, right? Misconfiguration is the bane of existence of security people, because ultimately you can be doing everything right. You can have tools in place. You can be, this, that, the other, and somebody with some type of privilege misconfigures something you don't expect to happens, and everything is kind of at risk at that point. Now there are so many things that you can be doing, right? And we're going to talk about my friends at Veeam are going to talk a lot about the data protection side, but there are so many things that you as an organization can do to help protect yourself once something does occur. And that is really the technology underlying has changed a lot in the last 10, 15 years. The principles haven't as much as I think people think, right? It really comes down to segmentation, least privilege, right? And audit, right? Making sure that you have some type of audit of your controls, that you've secured that you have the people empowered to have access to the data actually empowered and not a bunch of extra people, and making sure that systems are segmented from each other so that if something was to happen, you can stay protected. Now, I would like to point, normally I would say, like, you could look at something like the way the Titanic was built. Everybody's kind of aware that the Titanic built these intricate kind of locking chambers to keep it from sinking, right? And so things can still go wrong if you segment, right? But if those systems had worked as they had been designed, which they do in a lot of other scenarios where hulls are breached in modern kind of sailing, you see these catastrophic cascading failures being muted by some type of segmentation or backup or something, right? And so I think that's it. We have to, as a group, us as a service provider, right? Invest in cloud security skills, invest in security skills in general, right? work hard to make sure that we are holding true to the compliance objectives that we set for ourselves, right? A lot of the people on this call are under compliance that is self-imposed, right? They don't get audited every year on it, but they have to follow that compliance because it's some part of, maybe it's HIPAA or it's something, right? And if they don't do it, then you find yourself in a pickle when something happens, right? And everyone can look at your control objectives and see that you're not doing that. But you have to invest in that. And honestly, around that kind of least privilege model, making sure that you're secure not only from outside threats, but inside threats as well. And sometimes those threats are not always malicious, but they're still a threat, right? Somebody doing something that they shouldn't by accident and causing issues. So taking that full multi-layered security approach, the platform, the network, the endpoint, the software, right? Like all those things, building in that secure by design infrastructure, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud, the hardware security, the network micro-segmentation, the hypervisor security, the application enhancements and security that you can do from an applications perspective. Putting all that either, again, in the public cloud or in certified data centers, building robust access and authentication methods to make sure that those systems are well protected, right? And then adding a ton of security solutions that are comprehensive, that give you that, what ultimately comes down to intrusion prevention and vulnerability detection. Like those, like you can kind of highly categorize a lot of the buzzwords that are out there today and put them into the categories of, you want to detect issues and you want to prevent bad things from happening, right? And if you can do that successfully, you achieve high levels of threat intelligence and you can protect your organization. And then if all of that fails, you have to have backups, right? Like, I am aware of a recent event, and I can't say who, but that a major regional hospital system fell under attack from ransomware, and they didn't have backups, or their backups were more appropriately encrypted by the ransomware as well, right? And so essentially they didn't have backups. And there are so many cool ways to prevent that from happening. So, we're gonna make sure that we cover some of those today. And with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Michael. He's gonna talk about Veeam, what it can do, how it can save your butt, and I'll come back to wrap it up at the end.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, William. I really appreciate that introduction, and thanks for having me. Again, my name is Michael Deemer, Systems Engineer here for Veeam Software, and I'll be kind of taking you through kind of the deep dive of Veeam backup and replication and disaster recovery in a whole. But before I do that, I do want to kind of go a little more in depth on a couple different things that I heard that William was talking about that is very, very imperative to making sure that we actually can do what we need to do, which is, making sure that when we're setting up these environments, we're making sure that we set them up to the highest degree. So misconfiguration is one of those top things that really kind of stands out from my side, right? From the admin side, I see that all the time, every day, where they thought they were secured, and guess what? Not happening. Same thing with just kind of skill gap and compliancy, where they have to run their own kind of compliancy, and that really doesn't happen. So I really appreciate all that, and it was really good information from William. So what I'm going to actually do here next is actually talk about the 3-2-1 rule, and I'll actually talk about the 3-2-1-0 rule here in a second. But some of you guys may be familiar, some of you may not, but this is where I want to kind of show you where we can start to master this rule and really set you guys up for success. So we need 3 different copies of your data. Now, it does show VBKs down there, and I want to kind of break that down just a little bit. So VBKs in the Veeam world, or in the backup world, are active fulls. So you have active fulls of your data, and there's 3 different copies of that data. Now, we also need 2 different types of media. Media could be, spinning disk, it could be tape, whether that's a virtual tape library or a physical tape library, or, having that SSD or some type of quick storage that we can land on, so that we have 2 different forms of media there. And then one off-site. having one offsite is really mission critical. I feel like this is one of the more important sides of this particular rule, because this, one, gives you CYA up in the cloud, and two, it lets your admin sleep at night. I used to be an MSP admin for a really long time before coming to Veeam, and let me tell you, having that piece offsite, knowing that it has, you know, its own proprietary system and it's completely out of the scope of your particular on-prem data center or your domain controller, things like that, it just makes the admin sleep a lot better at night. Now, when we pair all three of these together, 3 different copies of your data, 2 different types of your media, and at least one offsite, maybe at phoenixNAP here, we're really going to make sure that we have 0 errors after verification recovery. I'll talk about verification and recovery here in a couple other slides, but that's really what I want to get into is our next one here is, what does it look like when ransomware hits, right? So Roland was talking about a couple different things, a couple different scenarios where we had, you know, hospitals all the way down to the pipeline, and this stuff is happening on a very frequent basis, guys. I mean, this is something that's not going to go away anytime soon, especially with the more of a migration to the cloud-centric model. People are ditching their on-prem servers, going completely cloud agnostic there. So this ransomware isn't going to go away anytime soon. It's something that I feel like everybody just needs to know and needs to really be prepared for when things happen, because it is going to happen. It's just like like when you own a house. You don't necessarily want termites, but they come anyway, and that's just the kind of the name of the game. But if you can protect yourself against those, it's another way of kind of mitigating some of your losses. So I know this slide looks a little busy. So let's kind of break it down from the left to the right here. So in the middle, you're going to see your hypervisor, whether that be VMware, Hyper-V, or Nutanix AHV, right? So that's going to be your core or your foundation. Now below that, you have your servers, and then you have your storage, whether your storage is HP, Nimble, NetApp, Dell EMC, whatever that may be. And then on top, you have your VM. You have a couple different VMs. Now, these VMs could be running anything from applications to databases or just unique files and data, right? And then to the right here, you're going to have your Veeam backup and replication box. So your Veeam backup and replication box is something that's very keen in this particular model, right? So let's kind of look at this on a very high level. So you see those VMs on the top of the hypervisor, they got locked. When they got locked, guess what happened? They got hit with ransomware. Now, there's a couple different ways that we can kind of get around this and really start to mitigate our losses right away. Now, the very first thing when ransomware hits is they're going to start asking for money right away. Obviously, you're not going to be able to log into your machine. They usually encrypt your email, everything that kind of goes into your environment, and then send you an unencrypted piece of mail that says, hey, you can actually read this, and please send us X, Y, and Z amount of money, whether they request it in Bitcoin, you know, some type of untraceable currency of some kind. Now, there's a couple different things that we can start to leverage right away. Now, if we're taking snapshots, we can just roll back to the point in time states where the ransomware hasn't been affected or was inside of the environment. And I'll talk to snapshots here on another slide, but there's a couple other ways that we could also do this. And the other couple ways that we can start to do this is going to an on-demand sandbox. So an on-demand sandbox is actually how we test and verify, one, that our backups are good and they're not infected with ransomware. So making sure that when we go back to do a restore, we're throwing that data set or that active full through an on-demand sandbox, which is in the ballpark of data labs, is going to be able to really test and verify that there's nothing still just laying around in that backup. It wasn't sitting dormant. And we can know with a good satisfaction rate that, hey, when we do a restore, there's nothing lingering in there and it's not just going to start encrypting the data back from there. Now, there's a couple different ways that we can do this, but the next thing I really want to talk about is snapshots. So recovering from snapshots is going to be really, really awesome. And this is where we can start to leverage, you know, modern data snapshots. As you can see here, we have snapshots every hour on the hour. And on our next slide here, I'm going to kind of give you a little more in-depth overview of what it looks like. So, all right, so a normal backup for your non-mission critical VMs are probably going off every day at, you know, maybe 8 a.m., 8 p.m., maybe 12 o'clock in the morning. but those are for non-mission critical. Maybe you have a VDI, so a virtual desktop image, and you're only looking for unique data sets, user data, C drive and D drive data. But maybe on your mission critical virtual machines, servers, applications, things like that, we really need to start leveraging this modern snapshot solution, which really comes down to play when we can take more snapshots on a more frequent basis, allowing for more granular recovery at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, when we have more granular recovery and we're taking more frequent snapshots, the less likelihood of data is going to be lost. So as you see here, the red line says unprotected, right? So we're just doing a regular backup. And having a backup is mission critical to having this whole thing. But if you're just doing a regular backup, there is some downside to it. And the downside is you could potentially lose data if you got infected at, let's call it 1 p.m. in the morning or 1 a.m. in the night. You're going to lose a couple hours of data. Maybe it's not mission critical, maybe it is. And that's where snapshots really come into play to really help with that. Now, something else I really want to talk about is our explorers. So I'll talk a little bit about recovery here in a second, but I want to kind of go into a little bit on my explorers. These explorers are how we actually granularly get this data back. It's basically just a very unique, fancy UI tool that we can go back, granularly pick out the point in time state that we need, either from Exchange, Active Directory, SQL, SharePoint, or even Oracle, and we can do very granular recovers, just like unique data sets. Or we can do a full-blown restore of SQL, Oracle, AD, Exchange, and we really have whatever's needed as long as we have a backup to leverage that during that time. Now, really the next slide here that I want to focus on is we kind of talked about what happens when ransomware hits, right? We talked a little bit about Sure Backup and running that data through a unique data set through a data lab, so that way we know that it's tested and verified. But let's also talk about restores, because we have a whole bunch of different options for restores here. And some of these restores are very, very mission critical, especially to the overall schema, right? So this is kind of building off that same slide here. So you have your hypervisors. Ransomware has still infected those VMs, right? So maybe we have some mission critical appliances or databases that are still offline. And we don't necessarily want to pay the ransomware because we have a backup. Now, there's a couple different things here, and you can see everything is actually floating around that Veeam backup and replication box over to the right, kind of in the middle. Now, we can restore granular items. So if we needed to, we can go back and just restore very unique data sets if we need to. Now, we can also do VM recovery all the way back to the same target, maybe another VM. Now, on the other side of that is actually failing over or sending that data over to Cloud Connect, aka phoenixNAP. And that's really a good point to start with, especially if you guys don't have your own data center or you don't have a lot of extra resources on-prem. Having phoenixNAP at your back and having them actually kind of relieve some of that stress, so that way they can either send it back to you and do it like that, or vice versa, they can spin it up inside of their own data center, is really mission critical to make sure that you guys can get back online and get back up and running and getting back into your daily operations as fast as humanly possible. Now, we can run from storage snapshots. We can also do it from Sure Backup. So Sure Backup is kind of what I was hinting to a little bit earlier when I was talking about data labs. Sure Backup is just basically the big umbrella. Data labs is a little subset that we can do. We can go back from tape, or again, we can actually fail back over to phoenixNAP or fail over to phoenixNAP here. So one of the last things I really want to talk about is really just monitoring and reporting. And monitoring and reporting here on our next slide is really going to be mission critical. I know I keep saying mission critical, but again, all these steps really to make sure that you guys can get back up and running in a timely fashion is really ensured in this. So again, how do we know that we're actually protecting? There's a couple different ways that we can do this, but one of the biggest assets that I think that we can kind of bring to the table is Veeam 1. So Veeam 1, what is it going to do? So Veeam 1, think of Veeam 1 as monitoring and reporting, analytics, and more of kind of like a second pair of eyes on your environment. Some of the cool things that you can do is honestly find out if you are inside of your data center or inside of your own network, hey, I have a VM that's being overused. And what I mean by that is, hey, the CPU, the core count, the RAM is always maxed out. But I have another VM right next to it that's not even getting touched. And that's some of the reports that it's going to be able to find inside of there. It's also going to show you that if there's anything that hasn't been protected, right? So maybe you went through a new hardware refresh and you need to add in a whole bunch of new hardware that just hasn't had a backup on it. It's going to generate a report for you. And it's really going to be a very granular tool to kind of show you from a monitoring and analytics side to exactly what's actually being backed up, how it's being insuredly backed up, and again, really kind of giving you that peace of mind of actually what's going on, and it spits it out in a PDF format. It's really cool. Personally, I really like Visio diagrams, and guess what? It spits it out for you. You don't have to go through the environment and just think that's where it goes, because Veeam 1 knows where it goes, and it's going to make all the correlating dots, all the IP addresses, all the subnets. It's going to make that very easy for you to kind of get. So again, Veeam 1 is something that I like to pair up with, just ransomware and prevention, and really making sure that we can have that additional skill gap, right? So a lot of end users may not have all the skills, but having Veeam 1 at your back is really going to be very beneficial. So I'm going to actually pass this back over to William, one of our Platinum VCSP partners, to wrap this up. I do want to thank everybody for hearing me spiel for a little bit. So thanks, everyone.
Absolutely, Michael. Thank you so much for taking the time to kind of deep dive us on Veeam, right? I think that for a lot of you on this call, you're probably already a Veeam user. For others that are not, we think it's the best backup and data recovery technology on the planet. And they have the customer base to prove it, right? I mean, at the end of the day, 500,000 customers can't be wrong. So, it is one of those things. But what we've done over the last few years is we've really kind of, I say few, I mean, shoot, it's been 7 years, but we've been partnering closely with Veeam to build kind of native service delivery around Veeam technology. So if you have Veeam on-prem or you're investigating Veeam, they've made it so easy to point and click your way into various solutions, right? Full-on disaster recovery as a service solutions, offsite backup solutions, some new stuff that's come out that's going to allow for kind of like super ransomware protection that we're going to talk about this in immutable storage. There's so many cool things that we've been able to partner with Veeam on delivering for customers in the cloud and giving them that native integration with the Veeam technology is super beneficial for those users on-prem. Ultimately, you're in a situation where you've got a great ISV software provider and a great service provider coming together to make a solution, right? And empowering you only to pay for what you use, get fanatical support, improve your recovery time objectives, and improve your recovery point objectives, making sure that that data is ultimately secure and protected, even from things like ransomware, and replicate that around to different regions if your business requirements call for that. So there's so much that you can do there. How do we use Veeam, right? We took Veeam and said, look, it's going to be the little red dot at the middle of our pie here, right? The data protection, protecting the data is going to be the foundation of our secure cloud environments, right? So people that are looking to migrate to the cloud, that are looking to just lift and shift from an on-prem VMware environment to a cloud provider that can take care of that data, host it, and improve the security posture of your organization through that migration. That is what we try to do. That is the whole construct of our data security cloud offering, right? Build those integrated backups, bring in security tools, audit the crap out of it, put it in physically secure buildings, and make it a place for compliance focused and secure workloads. Bring them to the cloud, easy migration, and run it just like it is on-prem. That's what we're doing. Veeam makes that possible. Veeam is how we help customers get to us. Veeam is how we take care of customers' data once they get to us, right? And it has been a match made in heaven over the last 7 years, and we continue to find ways to do new, more important things together, right? So much stuff coming down the pipe. And I think we'll be able to help even more organizations with different needs and objectives. So with the Data Security Cloud offering, which is a VMware-based cloud service, you get the secure architecture, secure by design, really low overhead running that environment, right? You can focus on your VMs and your applications, and that's it, right? Really cost effective, and you've got tons of engineering experience at your behest, right? So when you look at our cloud engineering teams, solution architecture teams, right? We're working to hire the best and the best, right? Because ultimately, what we find is that, you know, it kind of is somewhat self-fulfilling, but part of the skill shortage, there's a limited amount of skills out there, and not pnap, but guys like AWS, Google, right? And guys like us, we're taking those skills because we need them to help deliver services to people, right? And so we're building this huge bench of experience that allows us to run those cloud environments just like you ran them on-prem, and keep you in charge of your data at all times. That's kind of one of our main goals. Deliver that worldwide, right? And continue to bring excellence in network connectivity, cloud backup, and disaster recovery. You know, we've been in business for 11 years. We're going to be in business for a very, very long time past that, helping customers achieve new outcomes through cloud migration. And we're going to protect all of that data with Veeam technologies. So no matter where you're at, no matter, you know, what kind of customers you work with, if you're in the partner community, we have places that can help your customers get geo redundancy, move out of their on-prem data center, and we're continuing to add to this list every single day. I'm not going to read up all the stuff on this slide. The handouts have all the slideware and some other things, so you guys can review those. I'm going to get into some questions, but before I do that, I'm going to launch a poll. If anything, Veeam or otherwise, has you know, really, you kind of caught your eye, please say yes, please contact me. We'll reach out, determine if you want to talk to Veeam or talk to PNAP or both, and we'll get you in front of the right person. So no issues there, and I promise you we won't bother you to the end of time. Like, we're a technical organization, we're trying to get people in the right solutions, and my marketing people would really appreciate it if you press one of the buttons. All right, looks like we got almost 50% voted. As soon as we get to 50%, I'll go ahead and close it down. I know that not everybody is 100% engaged all the time, but I hope that this has been beneficial for everyone. I think we've got some really cool questions that we can answer that have come up. And yeah, so let's get right into the questions. All right. Let's see what we got here. All right, I'm gonna close down the poll here real quick, do the housekeeping components. All right, and then we're gonna move over to the Q&A. All right, let's see which one we wanna go with here. First, okay, let's go with this one. So in the case where you've accidentally deleted one of your backups, you have an admin, Mike, they have Veeam on-prem, they're copying their data to the cloud, and somebody goes in and deletes them, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud. Like, what does that look like from a Veeam perspective, and what is in place to help kind of save your butt if that happens?
Yeah, absolutely. Very good question. So exactly what happens, this happens a lot, to be brutally honest, where, you know, maybe something got accidentally deleted, but this is where having that offsite copy, where I kind of talked about 321 and 3210, really come in to CYA to really cover you on the other end, right? Is making sure that we have that offsite copy. So depending if it's at phoenixNAP or in the public cloud, we just pull it down, and that's the particular point. Or if it's on-prem and it's just a little bit older of a data, we can restore from that. But as long as we have a copy somewhere, we can definitely do a restore. So really making sure that we're very diverse and spreading our eggs out against that basket is really going to be mission critical to the overall backup process.
And from an insider protection perspective, PNAP supports that for that offsite cloud copy, right? So we will actually put those into a recycle bin of sorts, delete them on a life cycle basis, keeping you from that accidental deletion or potentially malicious insider issue, right?
Absolutely.
Mike, there was a question, what version do you have to be on to do backup from Snapshot? I think it's available in pretty much every version, right?
Yeah, I want to say it's almost every version. Just depends on the storage that we're going to be snapshotting. But I would say, running the latest and greatest of Veeam is definitely going to be the best suited for you. And then the lowest I'd probably go is probably like 9.5 version 4 would probably be the last version I would say I would feel comfortable with being fully supported.
Agreed. Somebody asked you for your intention of getting to Nairobi. I would love to be all over the planet, but if you reach out to our teams, depending on what your data sovereignty looks like, there may be options that are good enough from Nairobi. So happy to talk about those issues as well. Let's see. Okay. Does PNAP offer like POCs, free trials? Is it, if you have Veeam today, can we get you stood up with a POC or free trial? Like, absolutely. It's so simple. Contact us. We'll get an account provisioned. Or I think you can still, Mike, go to like my.veeam.com and get the free 1 TB offer, right? So there's this offer called terabyte. Yeah. And that'll actually provision everything automatically on our end. It'll hook you up with a free 1 terabyte for a year, right? And then if you like it and you need more capacity, you can just reach out to us and we'll give you some more capacity and sell you that.
Very smooth process.
Makes it easy. Let's see here. On the data security cloud side, for those of you that are looking at, kind of moving off of their prem data center, right? If you're trying to figure out how to get to the cloud, maybe you're neither not comfortable, you don't want to do application transformation, that's really necessary to use the public cloud the way it's intended to be used, right? Our data security cloud offering was built exactly for that, right? You want to pick up your VMs, you want to have seamless migration, just replicate them, cut over, and be in the cloud. That's exactly what we're accomplishing every single day for customers, right? And in those cases, we're responsible, which was the question, what are you responsible for? We're responsible for all management, hardware provisioning, SLAs, monitoring, NOC, everything, the hypervisor down is what PNAP delivers for our customers, along with adjacent services, backup, disaster recovery, object storage, security tools, right? Just so many different things that are either bundled in or available as an upsell. There's so many different things that we deliver on your behalf. And really our job every day is to keep the customer focused on their data, their virtual machines, their applications, and that's it. Let's see if there's anything else here. Okay. Yeah, so somebody said, hey, look, we're a current Veeam and PNAP customer. Could we get a review of our environment, making sure that we're doing all the right things? Absolutely, we got your name. We're going to jot it down. I will get our solution architecture team to reach out. We'll get somebody from Veeam on the call as well to do. Michael, I think you guys still do those like engineering reviews, right? Where you'll help customers make sure everything's kind of tidy on their end.
Absolutely, every day.
So, and obviously from a PNAP perspective, we'll do the same thing. We can talk about insider protection. We can talk about immutable storage. There's a lot of things that you might either not be doing or might not be aware of. And what frustrates me more than anything in the world is when our customers are not aware of a capability that we have, right? And so as a product guy, that's kind of our, my worst nightmare is that customers are not aware of some feature or thing that could have helped their business. So we'll make sure to do that. Cost. Is there a cost to do the on-demand sandbox? Mike, I don't think so, as long as you have the resources available, right? From a Veeam perspective?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
As long as you have, your license from Veeam, it's actually at no cost to you. And exactly that. As long as you have enough resources to run it, it's free.
And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but it used to be called something else, right? The sandboxes. It's like a mix of sure backup and stuff, right?
Yeah, it kind of goes by a couple of different names. So you'll see like Sure Backup, you'll see Data Labs, but they're and you kind of look at like Veeam's KBs, and they all really point back to the same thing. So Sure Backup's kind of like the umbrella, kind of doing everything else, and then Data Labs is just one of those things that it can do inside of Sure Backup.
Right. And Mike, to your question, if you're a DR customer of ours, leveraging Veeam or any tool, we provide testing periods for our customers. So 7 days of free testing. So you could actually just like do a test failover, spin up all your VMs, look at them, make sure things are kind of the way you expect them to be from that restoration point, shut it all back down and continue your replication. So that's a little bit extra added value that we have for DR customers.
Absolutely, and it's something that I would say is absolutely something that needs to be done on like at least a quarterly basis, if not a yearly basis, just to kind of walk through, understand what happens when your back's up against the wall, and you need to have that other extra oomph to have phoenixNAP help you out.
I cannot tell you how many customers I talk to that have so many great intentions. From a service provider perspective, from a Veeam software perspective, right? It's totally that like, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink thing, right?
Absolutely.
We try every single day to get all of our customers to do the right things. And that includes testing your backups, testing your failover and DR plans. And it's still like pulling teeth to get it to happen because it's hard, right? It takes resources and people don't have the resources to do it, but it will save your life one day. Promise.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay, Mike, well, I think we're out of questions. I hope that everybody really enjoyed this content. As always, Michael, thank you so much for joining us. Fantastic co-presenter. If anybody has any questions, go ahead, reach out. We're available on social media. We're available via email, telephone. You pick, we'll meet you there. I'll also put a shout out to our Slack instance. We're working on getting more people into Slack. It's not a place to get your official support, but it is going to be a place to work with us and kind of talk about ideas and bring new and share new concepts and things you want to do to the table. So look out for emails on that. If you got an email for this webinar, you're probably going to get an email for that here in the near future. So thank you, everybody. I hope everyone has a fantastic day.
Thanks, everyone.